Sorry, not this. Stop sharing. So coming up, Amir Hashem, this Shabbos is a very special day on the Chabad calendar. The day of Chai Elul, the 18th of Elul. On this day, many special things happened. Starting off already with Alter Rebbe's father's father, and Maharal of Prague, which that's the day he passed away for that time period, very old age of 98. Passed away on the day of the 18th of Elul. And with the time and the generations, Chai Elul became more and more well known among Chassidim as a special day. It is a day of the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, birthday of the Alter Rebbe. The stories of their birth are all miraculous when they were born. The Baal Shem Tov was born to his mother, Sarah, and his father, Rebbe Eliezer, who was a hidden tzaddik. Rebbe Eliezer was 100 years old when the Baal Shem Tov was born, and Sarah, they say, was 90 years old when the Baal Shem Tov was born. And we're going to discuss the story of the Baal Shem Tov on the 18th of Elul, the year he was born. And we're also going to contrast the Baal Shem Tov together with Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. We're going to compare the two of them, and particularly we're going to see the difference in how both of them passed away. We know the yard side of the Baal Shem Tov. When is that? On? His birthday is Chai Elul, and his yard side is Shavuos. Right? Shavuos is the yard site of the Baal Shem Tov. When is the yard site of Eliyahu Hanavi? Trick question.
We don't know. You don't know.
Didn't he just ascend to?
Right. He
never died.
He never died.
Right.
He's still alive. He never passed away, so he doesn't have a yard site. So if you find if they manage to, archaeologists will find you the caver of Eliyahu Hanavi, you can know that they got something wrong. It did happen several years ago in Eretz Yisrael that in the backyard of someone who lives in the far north, they found in a cave where it says, Caver Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi is one of the people who ascended to Gan Eden alive, just like Eliyahu Hanavi, who never passed away. So it's not really possible to have a caver of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. But that's besides the point. So the Eliyahu Hanavi, when he passed away he didn't pass away, he went to heaven alive. The Baal Shem Tov said about himself, he could have ascended to heaven alive the same way as Eliyahu Hanavi could have done. However, he wanted to fulfill the verse, the pasuk, El Afar Ata Vel Afar Tashuv. You are made from the dust, and you will return to the dust. And he wanted to fulfill that verse, and therefore he did not do that particular feat. He did not ascend to heaven alive, and he passed away and is buried in Mezhebush. Now, why did the Baal Shem Tov not want to do this tremendous feat what Eliyahu Hanavi has done? Until today, Eliyahu Hanavi comes and rescues and helps whenever Jews, whenever the situation warrants it. So why did the Baal Shem Tov not want to do that? The Rebbe is going to explain. We're going to bring a few backgrounds and a few references, but the Rebbe is going to explain over here how each one had a unique mission, a unique task, and each one did what was more fitting for them, what was proper for them to do, in order to fulfill their personal path of how to perfect yourselves to serve Hashem.
Did he write about this in Sikha or Maimon?
Yes, yeah. It's a Sikha in the first year of the Rebbe, of the Rebbe's Nesius. Yud Gimel Shvat, Tafshin Yud Aleph. 3 days after he officially accepted the Nesius. So the Rebbe explained that idea. The Rebbe explains it, and he brings a story of the Frierdiker Rebbe. I'm assuming he's also tying it in, saying this is also the Frierdiker Rebbe's task, why he was buried over here. Now, the Baal Shem Tov started a movement in Yiddishkeit, which even during his time affected a tremendous amount of the Jewish people. Later on, we'll say 80% of the Jewish people living in Europe were affected by the Baal Shem Tov in one way or another. And influence, of course, is strongly felt until today. Everyone who is a chassid, and at this point, chassidus already has trickled out and gone long past the borders of just if you have to be a card-carrying chassid, and many of the ideas of chassidus are adopted by Jews of all stripes from all over. So it's well known among our circles. Other circles perhaps are not so aware of the Kazakhs. Near Tach, which is in the year 1648, 1649. A tragedy just as big as the Holocaust took place in Poland. Just like in the Holocaust, approximately 1/3 of the Jewish people were killed in Europe, and it took place 1648, 1649. Approximately 1/3 of all Jewish people in the world were killed, mainly in Poland, and it was by Bogdan Khmelnytsky. He was a Ukrainian nationalistic general. Today in the Ukrainian army, you'll have the Bogdan Khmelnytsky award given for bravery. But he killed, him and his hordes killed millions of Jews during the course of those 2 years, and destroyed thousands of communities. Absolutely terrible times. This was during the time of Rebbe Baal Shem, the second Baal Shem. He actually went around in several cities, was able to help save certain Jewish communities, but those were exceptions. Those who survived struggled to get anything together, to put their lives back together, and the Jewish people were living in tremendous poverty. And all this confusion gave way to a man named Rabbi Tzvi, who many believed, he proclaimed himself as Mashiach about 25 years after all these pogroms, after the Kazakh pogroms. And the Jewish people were desperate to believe in Mashiach. Someone's going to redeem them from all of this suffering and exile. And eventually Rabbi Tzvi converted to Islam by order of the Turkish rulers, and everyone realized that Rabbi Tzvi is a charlatan. And again, they went back to the reality of living a hard Jewish life in Eastern Europe at that time. Many families were left without any source of income whatsoever, and consequently, all the parents who used to pay for a teacher to teach their children in Cheder were not able to afford it, and they needed their children to help out to earn a living for the house. So children from the young age would leave Cheder, and they would go to work with their fathers, or the father would send them to someone else to learn a craft, learn a trade. And only the wealthiest Jews were really able to afford to hire teachers to teach their children Torah. And there was a whole generation, several generations of simple Jews who were not able to read, to write, didn't know Hebrew, and what they were lacking for in knowledge, they made up for in sincerity. And they served Hashem with all of their hearts, and there ended up being almost a class divide in the Jewish people. You had the scholars, and you had the simple lay folk. And in every city, you had two different shuls: a shul for the Torah scholars, Talmidei Chachamim, and a shul for the simple people. And in the year 1698, so exactly 50 years after Tach V'Tat, the Khmelnytsky pogroms, is when the Baal Shem Tov was born. And one could take, look into the background of the Baal Shem Tov and how he was born, and all the big things, the tremendous things that his father was a hidden tzaddik. He was given a name Yisrael, and when he was a very young child, I think 3 years old, his father passed away, Before he passed away, his father told him two things. One is, don't be
Don't be afraid.
afraid of anything but Hashem. And number two was to love every Jew unconditionally with all your heart. And then he said Kaddish, and then a year later, after he finished Kaddish, his mother passed away. His mother Sarah passed away. And these two things became the bedrock of the Baal Shem Tov's philosophy. Baal Shem Tov was born in a city or a little town called Tlust, although we always signed his name, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov Me'akup, from the town of Akup. Akup is a Ukrainian word for a trench. Baal Shem Tov's parents were so poor when he was born, they didn't even live in a house. They were army trenches that soldiers had dug in the past 50 years before when all the wars were going on that were now abandoned. So his parents, when he was born, lived in these trenches, and that's where the Baal Shem Tov was born. And he was at the edges of the city, and as a young boy, and many of us are familiar, the Baal Shem Tov would walk into the forest by himself, secluded, and he would like to remove himself from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, and to look into the greatness of Hashem's creation. Until one day, he's in the forest, and he sees from far, a Jew sitting in a talis and tefillin, and davening, and he watches that Jew from far away, and after the Jew finishes davening, for a long time, the Jew takes out a sefer, sits down, and he learns a Gemara for a few hours, and he learns another sefer, a Zohar, for a few hours, and then eventually he puts away the sefer, puts it into a sack, puts a sack over his back, holds it with a stick, and starts to walk. And Baal Shem Tov goes out as a young boy, a 6-7-year-old boy. He goes out from his hiding place, and he goes over to him, and he tells him, Shalom Aleichem. And the person answers back to him, tell me, young boy, you're not afraid to be in the forest alone by yourself? And Baal Shem Tov tells him, my father passed away, and before he passed away, he told me I should not be scared of anything besides Hashem. I am not scared. This person asks him, are you the son of Rebbe Eliezer? And he says, yes. So he says, come, let's sit down together and learn. And together they learned Chumash Bereshis with deeper explanations, deeper meanings. Later on, Baal Shem Tov continued with him, followed him, and he introduced the Baal Shem Tov to this circle of hidden tzaddikim. He says for 2 years, he didn't even know who this person he was walking with, what his name was. And as time goes on, Baal Shem Tov, at his bar mitzvah, was already accepted among the circle of the hidden tzaddikim. And their task was to go around from place to place, town to town, and to give positive reinforcement, positive encouragement to all the Jewish people, encourage them to learn Torah, encourage them to make a bracha, encourage them to daven, to give tzedakah. And when the Baal Shem Tov was 16, that's the first time the Baal Shem Tov writes that he was merited to see Eliyahu Hanavi alone. He says in the past he was merited to see Eliyahu Hanavi only when he was with his teacher or other of the hidden tzaddikim. When he was 16, it's the first time he saw Eliyahu Hanavi alone, and for 10 years he learned personally with Eliyahu Hanavi, and he learned all about the Pirush explanations of davening and the effect that the davening, the prayers of a simple person has. And just as an example, there was, during the times of the Baal Shem Tov, a certain magefa, a plague that was going around where unfortunately many women were not able to, were losing their pregnancies, that were miscarrying, and in one city it didn't happen, and Baal Shem Tov explained is because in that particular city there was a very simple person who barely was able to read Hebrew, and he was finishing, and he was davening Shemoneh Esrei, and he would say Mevarech Hashanim, he would mispronounce it, and he would say Mevarech Hanashim, Hashem who blesses a woman, and that brought down tremendous brachas for that city. And he used to go, Baal Shem Tov would travel from city to city, place to place, trying to find simple Jews. How are you doing? In order to elicit the Baruch Hashem. And bring Hashem to be on everyone's lips. And Baal Shem Tov was installed by the other hidden tzaddikim to be their organizer, and he organized all tzaddikim, hidden tzaddikim, to each one an area and a task. And this continued for 10 years until Baal Shem Tov. So on Chai Elul, Baal Shem Tov was born. Chai Elul, on his 16th birthday, Eliyahu Hanavi revealed himself to the Baal Shem Tov. 10 years he learned with Eliyahu Hanavi. 10 years later, on Chai Elul, the Baal Shem Tov had another teacher who started to teach him, who was a teacher of Eliyahu Hanavi. Achia Shiloni. Who was Achia Shiloni? He was actually a Jew who left Mitzrayim, who left Egypt. One of the 600,000 Jews who left Egypt. I think he was actually a very young child then. He was on the Sanhedrin of Shlomo HaMelech, and he was the teacher of Eliyahu Hanavi. He's one of the prophets, and he's one of the in the tradition of Torah. For Moshe Rabbeinu, he's one of those who was one of the chains of the tradition of Torah. And the Achia Shiloni taught the Baal Shem Tov all the secrets of the Torah for a period of 10 years, from the age of 10 to the age of 26, beginning with Chumash Bereshis, going on to Chumash Devarim, the end of the Torah. 10 years later, he finished Parshas of Zos HaBracha, and now the Baal Shem Tov, for, it says, 6 years, he was resisting an order, command by his teacher, Achia Shiloni, to reveal himself. Don't be a hidden tzaddik anymore. And this is your purpose and your mission. And Rebbe Adam Baal Shem was sending letters to him. He says, Rebbe Adam Baal Shem was a previous Baal Shem, telling him this is the entire purpose of your being born to this world was to reveal yourself. And after 6 years of long, intense pressure to reveal himself to all the Jewish people, the Baal Shem Tov agreed, and what exactly the process was, I'm not sure. It says he went into a marketplace and started speaking, and everyone started gathering around him. And at this point, the Baal Shem Tov settled in the town of Mezhebush, and he ushered in a total new era of thought, of focus. Now, the Baal Shem Tov had his students who called the Chevraya Kadisha, the men of the Holy Brotherhood, some of the greatest Torah scholars of the time, and was limited to only 60 members. Right, so 60 unique and Torah scholars, Baal Shem Tov would teach them Torah, give a Shiur and Gemara and deep Mefarshim, Rishonim, Achronim. And at the same time, the Baal Shem Tov loved every single simple Jew. He would say there's no such thing as a simple Jew. Every Jew has a neshama. And you could imagine, perhaps because of the Baal Shem Tov's popularity, this class divide, the elite class, the scholarly class, were saying that you're giving excitement to the non-scholarly, the ignorant class, those who don't know, and they're listening to many of the things Baal Shem Tov says about neshama. And Baal Shem Tov was known as, he made many miracles, he performed many miracles. That's what he gained a reputation. And they thought that perhaps the Baal Shem Tov is now trying to maybe make a second Shabbos Tzvi movement and get the common folk to join him and go against the Torah. And any hint of Kabbalah right away got the anger or the ire of the Torah scholars. And many of stories, there was opposition from Torah scholars against the ways of the Baal Shem Tov. Of course, there are many stories of the Baal Shem Tov, Kfitzas Haderech. His passing, we'll touch on it very short, in order to cover some ground. Baal Shem Tov passed away on Shavuos in the year of 1760, Tafresh Chaf. He passed away on Shavuos. I don't think he was sick before he passed away, except for the day he passed away. The Baal Shem Tov asked the Chevraya Kadisha, and they all heard the news, and the Baal Shem Tov is going to pass away. Baal Shem Tov let it be known in different ways, and he told several of his students, including the Maggid, make sure to be here for Shavuos. And they heard already from the Baal Shem Tov, they heard some type of indications he'll pass away that year. And so he had almost many of his students came to be with the Baal Shem Tov on Shavuos. And on the first day of Shavuos, the Baal Shem Tov laid on his bed. He was very weak. He was teaching his students about the essence of Shavuos and secrets of the Torah. He asked Michal Zlochever, who was present, who was a student colleague of the Maggid of Mizrich and of the Baal Shem Tov, to sing a special niggin called the niggin of Michal Zlochever. And afterwards, Baal Shem Tov said, whoever sings this niggin and has a feeling of teshuvah when they sing it, I will arouse mercy from wherever level in Gan Eden I am at that time. Baal Shem Tov pointed to two different clocks on the wall. We only have one clock. He said, when the clock stopped, that's when he's going to pass away. Then it's time. He didn't say he's going to. Then it's time. And one clock stopped, and the hands were no longer moving. And so Talmidim and Baal Shem Tov tried to block the clock from the view of the Baal Shem Tov, and he laughed and he says, I know that the clock stopped, I'm not worried, and I'm certain very soon we'll find the key to enter another door. And later on, as Baal Shem Tov was explaining, and he came to the word V'aktem hadvekim b'Hashem elekechem Chaim kulchem hayom. You connect to Hashem, Chaim, you're always kulchem hayom. Those who connect to Hashem are alive the whole day. And then the Baal Shem Tov gestured that they should cover him with a sheet. And whenever the Baal Shem Tov would daven Shemoneh Esrei, he would start shaking, trembling, and he started trembling and shaking at that time. And everyone realized what's happening, and everyone wanted to look at the Baal Shem Tov, and the small clock started going slower until it stopped ticking as well. And those of the students of the Baal Shem Tov who were worthy of it were able to actually witness what was happening with the Baal Shem Tov's neshama leaving his body at that time. So that's in short, the Baal Shem Tov's life and a description of his passing. Now let's go to Eliyahu Hanavi. Elijah the prophet, source 1. Let's try zooming in over here. It says, Vayelech Eliyahu ve'Elisha min ha-Gilgal. I hope everyone could see it on the screens over there. Don't have the ability to zoom in when I'm in a slideshow like this.
Can you see it?
Oh.
You can see it? Okay.
I have a copy, but I'm
So
saying
we have a
everyone on the
copy,
screen.
we're fine.
Yeah, everyone has I'm sorry, everyone watching on the screen. This is the end of the, not lifetime, the end of the period of Eliyahu Hanavi. V'yelech Eliyahu v'Elisha min ha-Gilgal. Eliyahu's prized student, his name was Elisha. Vayomer Eliyahu el Elisha. Eliyahu told Elisha, Shav napai, please stop over here. Ki Hashem shlachani at Beis Kel. Hashem told me to go to Beis Kel, and he knew that he's going to leave from Beis Kel, and he didn't want anyone to be with him. Elisha told him, Chai Hashem v'chei nafshach im ezevcha. He made a oath, I will never leave you. He will never leave Eliyahu Hanavi. Vayedu Beis Kel, and they went together to Beis Kel. He did not want his student Elisha to see what's going to happen. Elisha told him, Shev napai, ki Hashem shlachani Yerichai. Stop over here, because Hashem told me to go to Yerichai. And Elisha said, Chai Hashem v'chai nafshach im ezvach ezveka v'yavo Yerichai. I will not abandon you. And they came to Yerichai. And they continued a third time to Yerichai. Eliyahu told Elisha a third time, Shev napai, stay here, stop by Yerichai. Ki Hashem shalchani hayardena. Hashem told me to go to the Yarden, to the Jordan River. And once again, Elisha told him, Chei Hashem v'chei nafshach nafshecha im ezveka. I will not abandon you. And they continued going together. And as they were walking and talking, v'hine rechev eish v'susei eish. Suddenly, a fiery chariot, fiery horses appeared. V'yafridu ben shenayim, and they separated between Elisha and Eliyahu Hanavi. V'yal Eliyahu bas'ara hashemayma, and Eliyahu went up to heaven in a whirlwind. Ve'Elisha Roya, and Elisha, his student, was seeing Mitzayik, and he was crying out, Avi, Avi, my father, Rechev Yisrael Farashav. The chariots of the Jewish people and the riders all were riding, dependent on Eliyahu Hanavi. But he no longer saw Eliyahu Hanavi. And he took hold of his garments and he tore them into two pieces. He picked up Eliyahu's mantle, his garment that fell down from Eliyahu Hanavi. And he stood on the banks of the Jordan. When a person finishes their task in this world, so the part of the neshama, of the soul that was in the body, parts ways with the body. And the neshama returns to its source. Eliyahu Hanavi did not pass away in such a sense. Rather, he passed away, and perhaps this will work better. Yeah, go like this so everyone could see this on the screen better. When Eliyahu Hanavi passed away, his soul and his body went up to Shemayim together. Mm-hmm. Right, that was the difference of Eliyahu. And we don't see this anywhere else in Tanakh. And in Gemara we have about Rabbi Pinchas, Rabbi Shua ben Levi. But besides for that, we don't find anybody else who went up to heaven alive, besides for Eliyahu Hanavi. And he has a whole slew of missions to do ever since then. And we'll touch upon those, God willing, soon. What time do we go until? We started 15 minutes late, I know.
What about Sarah Ben Asher? Did she die?
Yeah, she passed away after they came to Eretz Yisrael. I think she's buried in Tiveria. Oh. You know the cave Imahos in Tiveria? You have Tzipora, the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu. You have Bila and Zilpa. You have, what else is there? Several other,
Yeah, definitely.
Yocheved maybe? It's surprisingly, it's out a little bit off of the main roads in Tiveria.
So Eliyahu was the only one who, I thought there was like a few of them.
Who went up to Shemayim alive? Pinchas is Eliyahu. He's
Right.
Eliyahu.
Did he die too? Did he? Or he didn't die?
Up for discussion if Pinchas is Eliyahu physically or spiritually. If he is him physically, then he did not die. Otherwise, he did pass away. Because Eliyahu came from Shevet Asher. Some say he came from a different Shevet. The Gemara calls Eliyahu a Kohen. Says a Tana saw him in a cemetery. He asked him, "What are you doing? What's a Kohen doing in a cemetery?" So there's, I guess, discussion. Mefarshim Midrashim, was Eliyahu the same person as Pinchas? Yedua Maimer Baal Shem Tov, page number 4. It's known that Baal Shem Tov's famous saying that he said, "Shahaya b'yechaltoi lales b'sa'ara hashemayma." This is in the Sefer Shivchei Baal Shem Tov. The Rebbe Rashab in Taf Reish Ayin Beis has explanation about the statement of the Baal Shem Tov, but he had the capacity, the ability to do the same thing that Eliyahu Hanavi did, to go up to heaven alive. Ratza sheyeh etzli inyan ki afar ata vel afar tashav. He wanted to experience that you are dust, and to dust you will return. Kivan sheyeshna maila beinyan afar tashuv. The question arises: if there is an advantage in returning to the dust, why would Eliyahu miss out on this great advantage, this experience? Why did he not want to pass away like that? So the answer is, completion is not when you do someone else's job. Completion is when you do the job that you were set out to do. What your specific role. Move on. For Eliyahu to achieve what was needed from him to do, he had to go to heaven alive. And Eitzel Baal Shem Tov, for what he needed to achieve, was necessary for him to return to the dust, Lafar Tashuv, in order to achieve perfection. How is this expressed? So page 5. And we can suggest, or we can give an explanation to say, in Eliyahu Hanavi, we are told 3 different missions Eliyahu Hanavi does on an ongoing basis. Is it cold for anyone? Or I could
It's
change
kind
it.
of cold, yeah.
We could
You
just
know how to do that too? Wow. You're hired.
teach you this and
That's 70, it doesn't feel like 7.
idea, Eliyahu Hanavi, one of his missions is to come to every single bris milah, to come taste a little bit of the wine from every single person's seder, and to save different Jewish people when the situation warranted it, right? To go help Jewish people, and the example, which is brought, is Rav Hamnuna Saba. Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer Hamudai, things that he taught over, which are not part of the Mishnah. And we read a story about Eliyahu Hanavi. First of all, why does Eliyahu Hanavi have to go to every single bris milah? So, talking about divisions among Jewish people, what was one of the first big divisions? When after David HaMelech, after Shlomi HaMelech passed away, we had the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes, or 2 kingdoms, the kingdom of Yehuda and the kingdom of Yisrael. Until that time, all the Jewish people would make a bris milah for their son. Once they divided into 2 different kingdoms, and Yeravam ben Nevat was the king, and he was an idol worshiper. He stopped anybody from going to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, and he outlawed bris milah. Whoever was caught giving a bris milah to their children was put to death. So he banned circumcision in the entire 10 tribes.
But he was still a Jewish king?
Right. He's still a Jewish king, and as a matter of fact, he was a tzaddik before he became a king.
Why did he do that?
That's why Chia Shiloni appointed him as a king. I mean, why? I mean, perhaps whoever is greater has much greater tests, greater temptations. He was scared in the beginning that if people go to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, they're going to want to return to the kingdom of Yehuda. So if he's going to prohibit them from going to Yerushalayim, then they're going to be his subjects. And then people still wanted to go to Yerushalayim, so he built his own Beis HaMikdash, or he built his own altars. But you can't build an altar, you can't build a Beis HaMikdash for Hashem unless you have a Navi, a prophet. So he built it on his own. And then what should he fill it with? He filled it with idols, and so on and so forth.
Maybe that's why he did this dance for Sweden.
Why?
Because you're not allowed to go to the Beis Hamikdash if you don't have.
Oh, perhaps.
that's
Very good. Thank you, Cyril.
That's a good one.
Oh, right. Thank you. Mrs. Backman said that. Yeah, you're not allowed to go to the Beis HaMikdash if you have a bris. If you don't have a bris. So perhaps that's why he banned bris milah, so no one could go to the Beis HaMikdash even if they wanted to. With Amad Eliyahu, and then during the time of King Achav, Eliyahu Navi rose. Zachar Latoiv, may he be remembered for good. The Kina Gedola, and he was called a zealot, just like Pinchas. He was a zealot for Hashem. V'nishbal Hashemayim shloi lahayir tal matar ala aretz. And we all learn a Navi. He swore that there will be a drought in the land. Will not be any rain coming to the land. V'shama Yizebel, and the wicked queen Yizebel, queen of Achav, heard this. Viksha Laragoy wanted to kill him. Amad Eliyahu uvarach me'eretz Yisrael v'nimlat.
And she was a real idol worshiper, right? She
Correct.
wasn't even Jewish.
She I don't think she even converted at all.
Her husband.
Correct. And this is actually the story even happened after the story with Eliyahu Bahar Carmel, Eliyahu and the prophets of the Baal, and when the water finally came down and started to rain, when all the Jewish people did teshuvah, and now suddenly all the prophets of the Baal and all the false prophets of the Baal, finally, and the Jews destroyed all the altars of the Baal, and all the Jewish people returning to Hashem. Achav and Izebel are still in power, and Achav and Izebel sent a messenger to Eliyahu that she swears that she's going to make sure that he will not live another day if it's up to her. And Eliyahu Hanavi had to flee, and he fled into the desert. It says 40 days. He came to Har Sinai, and Hashem told him, "Malach hapay Eliyahu, what are you doing here?" And Eliyahu told him, "Kanoi kinesi, I am a zealot," as it says in Melachim. And Hashem told him back, you always were a zealot. Pinchas was a zealot when it came to immorality, adultery in Shittim. Pinchas wasn't Arakayin. Here you are being zealous. The Jewish people from now on he says ki azvu, it says kana kinesi ki azvu is brischa b'nei Yisrael. He told Hashem, I am zealous, I am upset that the Jewish people have abandoned your bris. Hashem told him, chayecha, swearing by your life, she'en Yisrael isim bris milah she'atarei b'necha. You will now have to be present at every single bris milah. Because you spoke against the Jewish people abandoning bris milah, you will have to be present at every bris. Therefore, our sages enacted that we have a shiur, kisei shel Eliyahu, for by every bris have a place for Eliyahu Navi to show up. That way,
Was that a punishment or a merit?
it's a merit, meaning to change your approach and now judge everyone favorably. If the fact that the Jewish people didn't have a bris wasn't their fault, and even afterwards, azu, if they abandoned it, it's because they weren't used to it, not that they did not want to have a bris, but they just weren't accustomed to it. So now you see for yourself that they keep my covenant, and as it says in Navi, that at the end of Galus, it says most of the Jewish people will not go in the ways of a Torah, but they will never abandon bris milah. Because any mitzvah that was accepted with simcha, with joy, will never be lost, and therefore the mitzvah of bris milah will be kept even by the vast majority of Bnei Yisrael, even those who don't necessarily fulfill other parts of Torah. Some places, the custom is, for the sake of brevity, I will just read some of the English over here, not read the Hebrew. Some people have a custom not to lock the doors on the first night of Pesach because it's a night when everyone is safe. It's called Leil Shimurim in the Torah. And he says in some places the custom is to pour a cup of wine for Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. It's interesting, it wasn't necessarily around 1,000 years ago. It's become more of a recent custom. They used to have a 5th cup of wine that they would pour for every individual person that would not be drunk, and then they would pour it back. Now we pour 1 cup of wine for Eliyahu Hanavi, not for every individual. And it's, as Rebbe brings all the sources and explains it, is because the 5th cup of wine is to commemorate the 5th language, the 5th word of Geula, 5 terms of redemption. However, as we're getting closer to Mashiach, to Geula, now we're commemorating what's going to be Eliyahu, Mevasar Eliyahu, who will announce the coming of Mashiach.
What's the 5th word?
V'hivesi, I will bring them.
Oh.
Which didn't happen completely yet. That's only when they entered Eretz Yisrael. Right? One reason for both customs, because on Pesach we celebrate going out of Egypt, and we also express our faith and our optimism that Eliyahu Hanavi will come to announce the coming of Mashiach. Now, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, if you talk about classes, once again, he was in a class of his own, but not a class that was an elite class of separate from everyone. He was teaching the Sodas HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah. So some of the most contemporary names that we know, Rabbi Yehuda, Reb Shimon, and he had a small elite group, which he would teach them Sodas HaTorah, the secrets of the Torah, the Kabbalah. And they're called the Idra. Idra means like a conference where he would teach them. And one of the people who will come join in the learning was none other than Eliyahu Hanavi, who will come to join in the learning under Shimon Bar Yochai, living, I don't know how many, almost 700 years later.
What?
Shem Bar Yochai was after the destruction of the second Beis HaMikdash.
So how old was Eliyahu Hanavi at that time?
Eliyahu Hanavi was during the time of the first Beis HaMikdash.
It was like he was 700 years old. You said?
About, let's say. And if he was Pinchas, he was even older.
Okay, wow.
And one time, Eliyahu Hanavi came late to class. Now, if you've ever been a kid and teacher asks you why you came late to class, I'm sure you've come up with creative excuses. But the Shem Bar Yochai excuse that he heard from Eliyahu Hanavi I don't think has ever been topped yet in history. While Eliyahu Hanavi was late.
Okay, why was he late?
So this is page 6 in your sources, in your copies over here. Shimon said, "Why has Eliyahu Hanavi not showed up yet to us when we are learning these holy matters?" This is in the Zohar Idur Rabbah. At that moment, Eliyahu Hanavi appeared, and the rays of light illuminated his countenance. Reb Shimon asked Eliyahu Hanavi, "Why were you not there when we just revealed the greatest secrets of the Master of the world, and a time of great celebration?" And Eliyahu Hanavi answered him, "Rebbe, I promise, I swear, that I really wanted to come. And not just that, you should know that when you were teaching in heaven, they were preparing for it for a long time. And already 7 days before you were teaching the Idra, these deep secrets of the Torah, all the souls of the righteous and the angels who were going to be present at this conference to hear these secrets of the Torah were already selected in heaven. And the invitation list, right, attendee list was already selected, and I was on that list, and I was supposed to be here. And I knew about it. I didn't come out of ignorance. And I asked for Hashem to join me, means like a big revelation of godliness to join me. And then I was given another mission to do, and I couldn't make it. What was the mission? I had to do miracles for Rav Hamnuna Saba. Rav Hamnuna Saba, he's brought down in Gemara quite a lot, but he was also one of the greatest Mekubalim, the greatest Kabbalists. Taylor Ibn Chunya ben Akana, him and Ibn Chunya ben Akana are counted as the greatest of those who taught the secrets of the Torah. And his son was actually, the son of Rav Hamnuna Saba was the Yenuka. You know, in Tanya it mentions a Yenuka, the child
Nursing.
what again?
Nursing?
I'm not sure if he was nursing then.
Yeah.
I don't know about that particular detail. But the last, you could say almost half, but the last definitely 20 chapters of the Likutei Amorim, the main part of Tanya, are explaining one sentence of what the Yenuka said. right? A candle, a stump, which just like if you want a fire to catch on a stump of wood, you have to break it. So too in a neshama, which godliness doesn't permeate it, doesn't penetrate it, you have to break it. And that the whole second half of Tanya is explaining that. And only in chapter 52 and 53, at the end, the Alter Rebbe says, and according to all this, we could explain what the Yenuka said. This, so he asked back in chapter 28. And that was a son of Rav Hamnuna Saba. At a very young age, he was already saying Nevi'ah, saying prophecy. So Rav Hamnuna Saba, and he and his colleagues were imprisoned by the Romans. And whether it was a Roman or was a Roman vassal of the place where they were, and they were chained in the king's palace, and Eliyahu Hanavi made a miracle to save them, that he toppled the wall of the king's catacombs of his dungeons, and they were able to escape. Some people were buried under the ruins. 45 guards and officials were killed under the ruins when the building collapsed. I brought Rav Hamnuna and his colleagues outside of the city. I brought them Kfitas Hadarech, what Baal Shem Tov would do, making a very quick journey. I sped up their journey. We came to Bikas Oine, the Oine Valley, and they were all saved. And they had not eaten already in 3 days because they apparently didn't feed them. It wasn't in the budget. And of the prison, he brought them bread and water. And I was with them. I did not leave them the entire day that you were teaching the Idra, the secrets of the Torah. I did not leave them. And how is that for a good excuse why to come late?
Wow. So this story is from the Zohar?
Yes.
Wow.
It's in the Idra.
I
In the
never
Rebbe.
heard that story before. Did you? You know that story?
So my question is like this. Eliyahu Hanavi, one of my good memories growing up from going to the Seder in my grandparents' house in Crown Heights on Empire Boulevard. When we would go out for Eliyahu Hanavi to open the door for Eliyahu, we would go down the steps to the street. And all the houses on the street, people about the same time were doing the same. We're all coming out, and this person's singing that niggin, and that person's doing this. And there's one house which I remember one of their neighbors was always like a half hour when they were outside singing and dancing. And it was almost like a whole block type of experience. So many people are having a Seder, and they're opening the door for Eliyahu Hanavi simultaneously. And I'm sure by the time he gets to Pittsburgh, he's a little tipsy from all the stops, starting from Australia and so on, and Eretz Israel, and Europe. How is he able to be in so many places at the same time? And if he could be in so many places at the same time, so why couldn't he be in 2 places at the same time by the time of the Idra Rabbah?
He was alive then, right?
He's alive now too, right?
No, but he was really alive then, right?
This is after he had gone up to heaven.
After he got up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how come now he could be in 2 places at once? Bris Milas take place all the time all over at the same time. He's at many brisim all at the same time. So how could he could be at many bris milas at the same time, but he can't be together with Shimon Bar Yochai, learning the Idra and saving Rav Hamnuna Saba at the same time? Why can't he do that? And the difference is because when he attends a bris milah circumcision and when he attends the Seder, he comes in a spiritual way. And when he saved Rav Hamnuna Saba, he had to become in a physical body. And in a physical body, he could only come in one place at a time. So that's why he cannot be in 2 places physically at the same time. He couldn't be physically with the Shimon Bar Yochai, and physically, he couldn't be at the Idra. Eliyahu Hanavi is going to have his greatest mission of all, which will be to announce the Mashiach is going to come and to bring everyone close to Hashem. As Rebbe does mention, if we say, it says Eliyahu Hanavi will come a day before or 3 days before, or even 1 day before the coming of Mashiach. to announce the coming of Mashiach, and everyone should come close. L'karev halavavos, bring everyone's hearts close to God. How could that be? If we say, Achak Eloi b'chol yom sheyavai, ani ma'amin, I believe in the coming of Mashiach, and he will not delay, even though he's delayed, even though he's delaying, I still believe he could come b'chol yom, every day. How could he come today? Did you see Eliyahu Hanavi announce it? So the Rebbe does explain that it must be, at least in a spiritual sense, Eliyahu Hanavi announced it today. Eliyahu Hanavi's body is not in this world in a physical sense. It's rather in the world of Yetzirah. So his ultimate perfection was to ascend to heaven with the soul, with the neshama not being detached from the body. Because his mission is needed to have besides for being spiritual, also to have many times a physical presence when it comes to helping and saving people. So Eliyahu Hanavi needed to have his physical body intact, and therefore he's still alive in the physical body, as it says in page 8, and as it says in the Zohar, or brought down, it's the world of Yetzirah. I'll try wrapping this up in the next few minutes. Hashem. Definitely within 10 minutes. Page 9. The Baal Shem Tov had a different role. Oh, sorry, on the screen I wasn't keeping up keeping up pace over here. We described the general state the Jewish people were in Europe at that time, in the world generally. That's where most of the Jewish people were. And the Baal Shem Tov, his name was Yisrael. And his name, Yisrael, Jewish people, he was there to be a wake-up call for the Jewish people. Al derech hames aleph, similar to somebody who faints. If you call their name in their ear, and you're able to wake them up. The state of the nation was similar to a person who fainted and lost consciousness during the times of the Baal Shem Tov. The Jewish people were in a very precarious state, in knowledge of Judaism, in morale. And one method to bring a person back who fainted is to call their name. And Baal Shem Tov's name was Yisrael, to wake up, to awaken the Jewish people from their state of what we call this alphos, state of a faint. Any of you are familiar or remember, I'm sure he came to Pittsburgh, Rabbi Ayar, Rabbi Drizzen. Your husband definitely remembers him coming to California. Rabbi Ayar. He was a chassid, and one of the students in Lubavitch, and he was a very big activist in Eretz Yisrael and in America for Lubavitch, for the Rebbe. Anyways, he was a very wise, very smart, very sharp person. Always had a very witty or sharp thing to say. He was able to accomplish a lot like that. And at the end of his life, he was already passed away when he was 90. And at the end of his life, he was, I guess you could say, in a coma. He wasn't responding. And he was in the hospital. And his family is with him. And they're discussing with the doctors who are over there. And some of the doctors were from doctors, Jewish doctors in the hospital. They were discussing, the state, this and that and that and this. And, he's saying like this, telling me like that. And finally, one of the doctors turns around to him and says, Rebbe Avram, he tells him in Yiddish, or, tell me the truth. Zog de'emes, how are you feeling? And suddenly he opens his eyes, he looks up, and he says in Yiddish, a ganz Leben kemen leigen, und jetzt 19 Jahre darf man sagen dem Emes. There's a whole life you could lie, and now at 90 years old you have to start saying the truth. When you say someone's name, it has the ability to wake them up. Why? So let's read a story. It's not very often that you have a story in a sikha of the Rebbe. At the bottom of page 9, or the middle, waking an unconscious woman. I'll do just the English part of it. A few years ago, the Rebbe is saying this in the year 1951. This is 3 days after the Rebbe accepted Nasias. This is Yud Gimel Shvat. The Rebbe there was a Verbringen, it was a Shabbos Verbringen in honor of the yahrzeit of Rebbe Tzvi Sarah, the Friedrich Rebbe's mother. He said a second mimer then. He said a few years ago, someone turned to the Friedrich Rebbe about a woman who was of the Ovid Akara. She was unconscious for a long period of time. And the Friedrich Rebbe advised that they should whisper the Friedrich Rebbe's name into her ear. They did that, and she woke up, and she eventually recovered entirely. One can ask, what does the Friedrich Rebbe's name have to do with this woman? How could whispering the Friedrich Rebbe's name in her ear be able to help her? When a person is unconscious, so their revealed life, their apparent life, that you can't see. They only have the life that's inside, the transcendent. It's called the Chayis HaKlalis, a general life that they have. When you call their name, you're bringing down from the neshama, from the soul, the Chayis HaKlalis, into the prati, into that particular person. By calling their name, you're activating, you could say, that chayis, that life, to return to all the limbs of the body and to refunction properly. When something is lacking in a general life, a human body is made up of many different limbs and cells. Every part of the body has a certain role to do in the body. And but they do exert influence over all parts of the body as well. And in the Jewish people, in this our one body, the spiritual body of the Jewish people is made up of innumerable cells, which are innumerable Jewish people, innumerable neshamas, souls, and every part and every cell has their own specific role, and they all relate to each other, and every person has an effect over someone else. So just like every soul has you have one little virus, one little bacteria could affect the whole body in a good way, in a not good way. And every person has a neshama, and it could affect every single other individual Jew in the entire world. However, the vast majority of people are neshamas pratius, individual souls. You have a neshama klalius, a general soul, a father soul, a general soul, which is everything. All the other neshamas are derivatives. These are rear neshamas, which have a special spiritual koyach power. Just like the heart and the brain are connected to every part of the body, and as a result, every part of the body is able to get commands, do this, do that, from the heart and from the brain. So you have a neshama klalis, a general soul, which this general soul has to be a neshama, very special spiritual neshama, completely batal, completely nullified, subservient to Hashem. And they are conduits to bring chayis, to bring life to everyone else, every other Jewish person. And you need a bracha, you need a blessing, you need to get some chayis, it comes from there. So whispering the name of a Rebbe, who is a neshama klali, a general soul, brings chayis to every single neshama, and we are on page 10, the last page. And this is true of the individual and true of the nation as a whole. When Baal Shem Tov's soul came down to the world to wake up everybody from their state of apathy, from their state of faint, how did one person have the ability to do that? Because his neshama was a neshama klali, was a general neshama, general soul, and connected to every single neshama of his generation, and is able to call every Jewish person by their name, Yisrael, and invigorate them with holy energy, with holy joy, bringing them out of the state of faint or of apathy. And the mission of the Baal Shem Tov was to awaken the entire Jewish people. He wasn't only a Rebbe of the Chevraya Kadisha, of the Holy Assembly, of the 60 greatest students of the Baal Shem Tov, he wasn't only the Rebbe of those. He was a Rebbe of every member of the Jewish nation, the illiterate, even the lowliest members of the Jewish nation. He reached everybody, and even those pulled down in some of the lowest places, and to express their connection with Hashem. So therefore, the Baal Shem Tov wanted to return to the dust. He wanted to end his journey, and he needed to end his journey in a regular way of passing away, with his body buried in the earth, to reach Jews on the lowest level, which is represented by being in the earth. So he wanted to undergo the same journey that even the simplest Jew undergoes, in order to be able to reach them at all stages, whether during their lifetime or also after their lifetime. And since, last words, Kivin shezehu inyanan shel Baal Shem Tov, very move on, shedafke bekach hu hashlema shelai. Since was the Baal Shem Tov's life mission, is clear that this is the ultimate state of completion for him. So what is greater, rising to heaven like Eliyahu, or being buried in the ground? What's the answer?
Each to his own mission.
Excellent. Depends on who. Right? Depends for who.
Does the Baal Shem Tov have any influence after he's now in the earth? But Eliyahu still has influence.
The Baal Shem Tov, I think, is having Chassidus, is Chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov, so he has an influence in that way. But not in the same way as Eliyahu Hanavi, that Eliyahu Hanavi comes to every bris, or he'll come to rescue people. You hear stories of Eliyahu Hanavi in the Holocaust, or these different things, different anecdotes. You don't hear that same thing about the Baal Shem Tov, like you hear that about Eliyahu Hanavi.
But I guess you're right, it was Chassidus who had an influence,
Right.
still has an influence. Did the Maharal of Prague have that general soul also?
They say so, yeah, in his generation, definitely. Shkech, thank you.